I also was in the newsroom during 9/11. So that was definitely an interesting time. I was not supposed to be on duty until 1 p.m. that afternoon. But as soon as all of that went down, phone calls happened immediately. I went to the newsroom. I did not leave the newsroom for about 4 days.
Matt Woolley Podcast.
So, today, our guest is Bridget Sigler. Thanks for being here, Bridget.
Yeah, excited to be here.
All right, so we always do this for our guests. Who is Bridget Sigler? So, she's a wife and a mother. She's a news reporter and producer. She's a marketing manager at CMD, an assistant product manager at Tyson Foods, a marketing manager at Sam's Club, an account manager at Catapult Marketing, a shopper marketing manager at Conagra Foods, a senior account manager at Saatchi and Saatchi, a brand manager over shopper marketing at Kimberly-Clark, and now a senior brand manager, team lead for Walmart shopper marketing at Kimberly-Clark.
Just a few things.
Did I miss anything?
No, that's pretty much the summation.
Did you have a job before the news reporter?
Some odd jobs in, high school and college. But other than that was my first job
we'll
college.
get to that in a second. That's perfect. Okay. So where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, so I say I'm from Northwest Arkansas. I moved here when I was in grade school from Memphis, Tennessee. So not too far away. That's right. Home of Elvis. Everybody loves that.
Thank you very much.
But yes, exactly. And so, I grew up in Northwest Arkansas, have seen development of this area over the last bazillion years, and it's changed a lot. And I'm very fortunate to have had the luck to live here and grow up here and really have all the opportunities that you've just mentioned, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Here in my own backyard. So very happy.
How old were you when you came?
I was 8 years old, I think.
8 years old? Oh, wow. So you're like 28.
Exactly.
So you've been here for 20 years.
For a little bit.
So you came from Tennessee. Mm-hmm. What area did you specifically grow up when you moved here? What area?
Fayetteville.
Oh, you're Fayetteville.
And I still live in Fayetteville today.
Lifelong Fayettevillian.
Yeah, that's right. I love the college vibe. It's just
did you go to the U of A?
I did.
What did you study at the U of A?
Broadcast journalism, hence the reporting with a minor in PR. So always an exciting time. I originally went to college to be an actress, so
Is that right?
drama. But my parents told me to get a real job because being Susan Lucci of daytime was already taken. So that is where I had a career divergent. And I took a class in college called Intro to Mass Communication with Professor Hoyt Purvis. Changed my whole perspective. I had a roommate at my sorority who recommended that class to me. She was on the broadcast path, and it just was this perfect storm. I was bitten by the bug of what news production was all about, and from there, switched my major, really dabbled into broadcast journalism, had the opportunity to work at UATV. Nice. I was there when...
What year?
What year?
Yeah.
That would have been like 97 through... 2001.
Were you there around Derek Ruskin's time? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I remember those because what's funny is because I came up here in early 2000s, and I remember actually a lot of people gave those stations a hard time, but it's a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh,
a very open format. Everybody's
super
cool.
Fun. It was the best. We worked alongside. I was obviously the broadcast side of things, but there was a radio station that was managed as well as a newspaper, and so we all worked on the bottom floor of Kimble together, really just bringing the news to the students at the U of A, which was kind of exciting. During my time there. I think this was maybe one of the reasons I was able to get the job in my market after graduation. Unfortunately, a professor had been shot at Kimble Hall, and I was downstairs when it all went down. So I was the only student allowed to cover that for UATV. So I got to help the local news affiliates.
That's awesome.
So it was really cool. So I really built a lot of connections, which is what this whole market is based on, who you know, who you work with. Which did afford me my first job right out of college.
That's awesome. So tell me about that first job out of college. What was that like?
So that was an eye-opener. I worked nights and weekends at KNWA, the NBC affiliate here in town. Had to change my last name because my last name at the time was the same as the main anchor, no affiliation, no relation.
They make
but
you do that?
They made me change my name, so it's Bridget Bailey.
I'm gonna have to YouTube that. I bet there's some old clips.
Before YouTube. I mean, I'm old.
That's right. Yeah, I forget that. Well, me too. We're in the same age group.
I have some DVR Pros if you were able to take that recording off DVR Pro and transfer them to something new. But
That's
who knows if that technology even exists. But
awesome.
no, I work nights and weekends as a general assignment reporter and producer. So I was producing like the 5 and 6 o'clock newscasts for the anchors, finding stories off the wire, writing the news scripts that the anchors read, and then obviously editing videotape, shooting, whatever was going on.
Were you like one of the ones that they go, like they say, Bridget, you need to go do this, and so you take a truck out, you take a camera
Yes,
out,
sir.
and that's crazy.
That's it, man on the street. So we did a lot of that. Snow days were always my favorite. My mom loved to call and be like, your nose is really red. I'm like, yeah, it's 25 degrees outside. It's awesome. But some really cool stories. I mean, like some of them are a little dark. My husband and I were dating at the time, so he was on this journey with me. And one of my beats was Beaver Lake, and so I would have to call the police and fire stations every weekend when I'd come in to understand what was going on, to see what the news was of the week. And we called it Dead Body Sunday. It's a little dark, but it was like that year where people would drown every weekend at the lake, and so having to go cover those stories. The news is a really interesting business to be in because it starts to desensitize you a little bit to what's happening just because of the frequency and regulation of that. So it took a while after that career to start like being able to be more sensitive about things that were occurring in the news space. I also was in the newsroom during 9/11. So that was definitely an interesting time. I was not supposed to be on duty until 1 p.m. that afternoon. But as soon as all of that went down, phone calls happened immediately. I went to the newsroom. I did not leave the newsroom for about 4 days.
Wow.
So it was all hands on deck. Everybody was just trying to understand what had happened, who from our local area may have been involved, how do you get in touch with those people, and then how do we report the state of the union as it pertains to our viewers in this area. So all a very pivotal part of like my career journey and things that will leave a mark forever.
So I'm assuming, what you're talking about is a lot of high pressure situations that, demand a lack of sensitivity, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so has that skill set, we'll call it, has that, worked throughout, has that enabled you throughout the rest of your career?
Absolutely. I will say, just going back to my experience in college, like I said, it was theater first, right? And then it was moving into broadcast journalism. And I will say I'm very fortunate that a lot of my career has been developed based on just my ability to read and write, right? And I will say that's a skill that a lot of people don't have, right? To be able to communicate effectively, to tell a story. All of those things are so critical to any of these roles that I've been in. And oftentimes, like I say, that has been my saving grace outside of not having a master's in business, right? I did not go to business school. A lot of it was just hands-on and learning and being curious and being able to really hone my skills in that communication space to be someone who was a hireable person that, people felt like they could do the job accurately and well. And again, that's, I would say, my saving grace, if you will, that has afforded me just this career longevity.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's transition here. So we get out of news. Why did we get out of news?
It paid $18,000 a year. So try to pay your bills with that wasn't really working. So from there, I moved on to a job as an associate or assistant marketing manager at the Northwest Arkansas Mall here in Fayetteville under mall management. That mall was in its prime back in the day.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad these days, but it was a cool experience. Like, I had never heard about mall marketing before that career. Again, it was being responsible for driving traffic to the mall. So my favorite thing about that was bringing Santa Claus to the mall, right?
Nice.
Like, how do you get to build this program, right, to build the excitement and get the traffic in so people would spend more money, right? So your mall would be more profitable. You got paid to shop for a living. And so really just figuring out a way to be the community hub, to make that a profit center, right? To make sure the stores were getting the traffic so they could meet their sales goals, and how do you continue to be that heart of the community. So I was there for about 5 years. Through that time, I worked with the International Council of Shopping Centers, which is a big conglomerate, right, of retail and shopping centers across the U.S. to get my Certified Marketing Director certificate. That is a pretty great title to have, right? It just really helps you get to that next phase of your career within that shopping center environment. It was a really cool time, right? Because you were able to just understand more of that marketing business side of, or for me personally, understand more of that marketing business acumen part of marketing. So like really understanding your percentage rent and how much you need to be profitable, and like in order to bring Santa Claus, how much does that cost, and who do you need to do business with. So that was kind of my introduction to what I do today, right, with suppliers and community vendors and ways to work with the local news and radio stations to do commercial advertising and things like that. So again, it all kind of pieces together like the string that threads all of my career together. So
that's awesome. Okay, so you moved from there and then you went to Tyson.
I did.
So how did that jump happen? Because that's kind of a different...
Totally different. I wanted to get in the world of CPG. Obviously, being from this market, that's what a lot of your peers do in the marketplace. And again, I saw the writing on the wall at poor little Northwest Arkansas Mall. And that was the time Pinnacle had just opened. And I thought, oh, competition. Maybe time to take a career move. And I had just cold applied to the job at Tyson. It was an associate product manager in fresh chicken, and that is a very commoditized business. It was not the perfect role for me. You know, you get in sometimes and you realize immediately that might have not been the best fit for you. And it wasn't a traditional marketing role that I was accustomed to. It was more like product analysis and product cuttings and like packaging and things like that. And just, wasn't a great fit.
Was it hard on you?
It was hard. I just didn't feel like I really fit in. I didn't feel like I had the skills to excel at that role. There was another marketing department within Tyson that I probably would have been better suited for, but, you know, hindsight, right? So that career was only 8 months. So for me, I got in, I knew it wasn't right, and was actively pursuing an opportunity to find something that might be a better fit for me.
And then you went to Sam's Club.
Then I went to Sam's Club, right? And that was through an acquaintance who had said, oh my gosh, you'd be a great fit here. You know, please apply for this job. And I was at Sam's Club for 5 years. I really, really loved that job. That was my first taste in CPG marketing, right? So working for the retailer itself, I was the marketing manager for health and wellness and consumables.
Oh, that's awesome.
So a lot of the same brands that I support today, just on the opposite side of things.
Well, that must give you a lot of perspective today.
It does. I mean, I remember working with Kimberly-Clark while I was in that role at Sam's Club, where I would go to innovation summits, which is exactly the opposite of like how I bring that to the customer today. And I was blown away at just how well-versed these suppliers were in the brands that they were promoting. And so I remember sitting in a meeting that Kimberly-Clark had brought to Sam's Club to talk about the insights all around adult incontinence. And I was just like, you know, early in my career, I was like in my late 20s, I think, maybe early 30s at this time in my career. And I was just like, I had never heard of adult incontinence, and I had no idea.
I have no idea. What is that right now?
You pee your pants.
Incontinence. We're going to have to edit that one out. I do know exactly what you're talking about. I don't know why that didn't dawn on me. I got you.
But I mean,
and that's sad, too, because we've done work with you.
Okay, so we should call it like bladder leakage.
There we go.
But, again, it was just really neat to kind of see that and really understanding that true marketing from a business perspective in the eyes of the retailer. So, you know, that was really the time we were trying to bring things online a little bit more. I mean, it wasn't to the degree that we are in today, but a lot of it, we were still doing print publications. And, you know, that's not even a thing anymore. I don't know, does anybody even get magazines? But really, we would do what is now probably the closest to the ISB booklet that Sam's Club distributes. So again, making sure you got sign off from the merchants of which product and what the pricing was to be on promotion every month, and working back with our private brand teams to make sure we were marketing those effectively. And again, the digital space, right? How are we trying to really grow that Sam's Club digital space? Nowhere near what it is today.
Right.
But again, a really great job.
You seem to be on the cutting edge of a lot of different. Your career path is a lot of advances in retail, you kind of walked right. It seems like you've walked right along with it.
It absolutely. I like to call it the trifecta because I've had a little bit of experience with supplier, with retailer, and agency. And so when you think about like a well-rounded marketer, at least in my opinion, as I'm hiring for someone, like having that perspective, because they're all a little bit different, the way the retailer looks at the business versus the way the supplier is selling to the retailer, and versus the agency, who's the creative arm, really bringing the creative ideation of that brand or the creative story of that brand to life at the retailer via the supplier. All of those things work together. And so I feel like it's given me a leg up in my career, if you will, just having seen how each of those businesses operate differently. Because I will tell you, at Sam's Club, I'd been there for 5 years. I was at the top of my game. I thought it was, everything was going great. I was hungry for a different role at that time. I just, kind of, my role was getting a little, stale, and just needed to find something else. And I went to an agency thinking, I got this in the bag. This is so easy. I mean, I've worked for the retailer. I know everything at this point. I did not. I will say, when I went over to Catapult after that, as a marketing agency supporting several suppliers, I thought, oh my gosh, well, I had no idea this is what the supplier was going through. And so when my client is asking me to do X, Y, and Z, I can see why they're trying to do that, because they're selling that directly to the merchant, which was what my perspective was. I didn't see all the other side of the businesses and the challenges and what they were trying to accomplish from a sales and share perspective. I was just thinking of what the merchant would care about. So I had to start shifting my mindset to be more in line with that business problem to solve, or what would drive that conversion at shelf, and that was what the end goal was, versus like, why would the merchant, what would the merchant say, right? And all the questions that the merchant would ask. So it was thinking about it differently, or almost reversing the thought process and how I needed to go solve the problems for my client. So on that desk, I'm trying to remember who some of the clients I worked on that team. It was Conagra, which afforded me my next opportunity. And that was my primary client at the time. I did work on Georgia Pacific a little bit, which was a paper manufacturer,
absolutely,
competitor of ours. And maybe a couple of other just smaller startups that we had worked on. But again, it just was a great time to get to really develop holistic marketing plans, from, again, print pieces to national commercial spots, or really weaving that story together with national marketing and how it came to life from a retail marketing perspective. Again, we talk about like the traditional roles of brand and retail marketing being in the ways of brand being all about driving awareness and education of the product and driving loyalty, but then shopper coming along to drive traffic and conversion to your specific customer, right? And point of purchase. So again, a lot of that was just connecting the dots on that and figuring out how you can take that master national execution and apply it to your specific retailer, and like what would need to be true for you to execute in a way that like the Walmart consumer or Sam's Club consumer would care, to help them make that final decision to get it in the basket.
Wow, just building knowledge upon knowledge upon knowledge upon knowledge. I can see why you're in the position you're in now with all you've. Okay, so let's switch. Let's keep going.
Keep going. Where did I go after that?
Time. Oh, we're good. We're doing great. Okay, so you transitioned from Catapult, obviously, so Conagra.
I went over to Conagra. Obviously, I had serviced that client for several years, being on the Catapult business. And honestly, when I was first asked to take that role, I turned him down. I did not want to do it. I really loved working agency, and I thought, maybe this is more than I want to take on. And so one of my peers that supported Conagra took that role, and I really got to see it from her perspective. And so when she vacated that role, I was like, hey, maybe I am ready for this, right? So it did take some time, though, to decide that was the next move for me. And that's been the case along my whole career journey, is just being very thoughtful. Is it the right move to make? Why am I making this move? What will it, fulfill for me in that journey that I'm on? And so, again, when I moved over to Conagra, I was supporting their snacks business. for Walmart.
Oh, awesome.
And so that was like Orville Redenbacher and Snack
nice.
Pack Pudding and Slim Jim and,
wow.
you know, lots of fun things,
Did you
right?
gain any weight while you were in that position?
But I did eat a lot of snacks. I still maybe have an affinity for some of those snacks. No, but I, you know, again, seeing it from a different perspective other than just being on the customer side. And that to me, I think, was where I really got the bug to stay within the supplier community. I got to own my own book of business, my own kind of P&L. And I really had full ownership of like how those brands were positioned to come to life at the customer. And so for me, again, thinking I knew everything there was to know about Conagra, having supported them for several years from the agency perspective, I didn't know anything. When I got on the inside of the supplier, you have access to so much more data and so many more resources. So I was held at an arm's distance a little bit at the agency and was only briefed on the things that my client wanted me to know. But when I understood more of the state of the business, what the sales of, you know, these brands were at Walmart, what were the problems that we needed to go solve? What was my merchant upset about? Like, how do I show up and get more distribution of this item at the line review? All of these things started to be the, oh my gosh, now I understand why my client was briefing me on all of this stuff. So again, you're starting to see the other side of the coin to understand like the holistic side of the business.
That makes sense. That's awesome. So why jump from Conagra to Saatchi and Saatchi?
Well, you've heard of 3G. All right. So, unfortunately, Conagra was going through a restructuring at that time, and I was one of the recipients of that pink slip. And so, unfortunately, that job was eliminated. I saw the writing on the wall. Fortunately, we had a kind of a heads up that this was coming. And for me, fortunately, I had already started to put feelers out there to see what the next move was going to be. So the day I got laid off, an hour later, I got the job at Saatchi.
Oh,
so
wow, that's great.
It was an amazing situation. I was sitting at Krabby's, enjoying a refreshment, drinking my sorrows away, which quickly turned into celebrating
That's
my
awesome.
next.
What a blessing.
It was definitely a blessing. Couldn't have asked for perfect timing.
Oh, absolutely.
And so from there, I went over to Saatchi and I worked on the Coca-Cola business.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they were a new client for Saatchi and Saatchi. I did dabble a little bit in health and wellness, health and consumables for Procter, but most of my time was spent on Coca-Cola there, just being the account manager on that business. That was a great time, honestly. Like great brands, really interesting because you got to learn a little bit more about like the bottler side of community.
Oh, yeah.
And that those bottlers definitely have their finger on the pulse of that business.
Oh, 120%. So I love, we're very familiar with the Walmart team, Walmart Sam's Club, Coca-Cola team. Great people, but also just so happens my best friend works for one of the bottlers locally, Ozarks Bottling. Shout out to Ozarks Bottling. I love every refreshment that they bottle and make, and we would like to have some at our office very soon. Sorry, I'm just being stupid.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, that wasn't a plug. I'm just speaking the truth. But yeah, and shout out to Joe Storley, my best friend. I love Joe Storley. So, anyways, it's interesting the dynamic between the brand and the executioners of the product.
Absolutely.
It is crazy.
It's crazy.
And the bottlers are all the teams will tell you this. The bottlers are the backbone of that brand, and they have to do so much to make sure it gets done.
Yes, exactly. And a lot of that's where the marketing budgets come from, right? I mean,
absolutely. The
bottlers need to make sure they have enough trial and they have enough, distribution, and it's all dependent on the supply they have, but then also dependent on what we are able to do.
It's not easy work either.
It is not.
It is not. Those guys are on the hook for so much. But, there's also, I will say this, there's a reason why, they own over 90% of the market share still after all these years. And if you get into some of the details, we're familiar with some of the other bottlers too, like Swire and, all throughout the nation. And it's just very interesting, the cultural dynamics with Coca-Cola through the nation when you get into it. It's pretty fun.
I love it. I mean, it's so fascinating. I was just in the Northeast last week for a business trip. Could not find a Coca-Cola or Diet Coke to save my life. I'm not a huge soft drink fan, but the person I was with is a hardcore Diet Coke consumer. And boy, we had to
Pepsi?
scour. It was Pepsi everywhere.
Pepsi country.
And I'll tell you, if you're a hardcore Diet Coke lover, Pepsi's not going to cut it for you.
No, they're not. It's a truly it's a night and day situation. No slander to the Pepsi folks.
Nope.
But yeah, I mean, it's funny whenever you venture over into Pepsi country. It's pretty wild.
It is.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Design Steins. Since 2010, Design Steins has assisted brands and suppliers with branding, packaging, displays, engineering, photography, video, and trade shows for retail. Design Steins provides your brands with the retail power to make the sell. Go to designsteins.com, that's DESIGNSTEINS.com, to learn how they can help your brands go next level. Designsteins.com. Your brands, your goals, your success. This podcast is brought to you by the Grove Comedy Club in Northwest Arkansas. The Grove Comedy Club is Northwest Arkansas's premium spot for national comedic acts all year long. Go to grovecomedy.com, get your tickets, then come grab a beer, grab some food, and get ready to laugh. And remember, comedy is at the Grove. This podcast is brought to you by George's Majestic Lounge in Fayetteville. George's Majestic Lounge is the longest-running club and live music venue in the state of Arkansas. George's Majestic regularly features national acts and is listed as one of the top 100 greatest American music venues in the United States. If you're looking for a great time in live music, head over to georgesmajesticlounge.com and get your tickets today. George's Majestic Lounge, where live music lives. But okay, well, let's move forward.
No.
So we went to Saatchi and we were at Saatchi and Saatchi. Coca-Cola was your main account, right?
Yeah, and it was a great job. I mean, like, I did a lot of great things for Coca-Cola. That was when we were, partnering with the Bentonville Film
What
Fest.
time around? What time frame was this around?
That was, let's see, that was probably 2005. No, 2008, 9, 10-ish, somewhere around there.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I feel like, I think that was around that time. It was about the time Bentonville Film Fest was brand new. So whenever that was, I'm sorry, my dates are not always adding up in my head.
No, that's all right.
but yeah, I mean, that job was great. It was back to like what I was familiar with from my Catapult days in agency, a lot of client services, whatever your client wanted, you found a way to deliver against that. But it just wasn't fulfilling for me, right? Having gotten the bug of owning my own business, owning my own P&L. I missed it. I missed that sense of ownership.
Gotcha.
And that is why I was exploring, how do I get back to the supplier community?
So you came to Kimberly-Clark.
And that's where I landed at Kimberly-Clark.
And you're still there
Here I am today, just celebrating my 7-year anniversary.
Well, congratulations.
So, yes,
Oh, that's awesome.
Time flies.
Yeah, that's right. I gave you a like on LinkedIn.
You did.
That's fantastic. Well, I love, and this, I tell everybody, we have a lot of clients at Design Steins, but I will say, and this isn't a shameless plug, I truly mean it 120%. We love working with the people at Kimberly-Clark for several reasons. One, even the biggest thing I can say is culturally there's a good alignment there. But, you guys are the type of company that you don't throw your hands up in frustration when there's a problem. You just say, all right, what's the solves? I have never met collectively, because we don't just work with Walmart and Sam's Club team. We work with Costco team. We work with Wakefern and Menards and CVS, Walgreens, whatever, all over. And I found that collectively across the board, I don't know how Kimberly-Clark does it, but everybody has this just great culture of getting it done.
I feel like the culture at Kimberly-Clark is just like none other.
Yeah.
I've never experienced this in my entire career, and I've done a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, the thing is I can say from just the experience, because you get in your own little space, and so you think that because obviously we're located, we're in the we're in the same building as far as Walmart team is concerned, and you start to think, well, maybe it's just this team. But then when you start to branch out, and you start to realize, wait a minute, and I don't know what that secret sauce is as to how collectively Is it the hiring process? Is it the attitude from leadership? What is it that you have any?
I mean, I don't know. I would say just as we've gone about like hiring my team and just like how we talk about our culture, I mean, it is something that we work on, right? I think it is something that we look for in our hiring process, right? When we are interviewing someone, do they fit the culture? Is it something that they're looking for? Because, cultural fit isn't for everybody.
Right.
And so I think we do, by association, tend to hire people that are diverse from us, but also have similar mindsets. And I think while the diversity brings us new opportunities to excel or see things differently, I think the underlying desire to succeed, to be curious, to kind of continue to push when things get hard and not take no for an answer is that like inherent built-in experience or like drive and desire that I know I particularly look for when I'm hiring a candidate. And those are things that can't be trained, right? Those are just things that you either have or you don't have. And I think a lot of people in our company look for those things too, right? Just because we know those are problems we're trying to go solve and we understand like some of the challenges that our business is under. And so how do we look for people who are hungry and, want to continue to push even if no might be the answer? So I think that maybe is just what helps the culture remain the culture. We also refer to the Midwest niceties, having been founded in Neenah, Wisconsin, now in Chicago is our marketing and sales organization. It's just Midwestern niceness.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's fantastic. So tell me about your career at Kimberly-Clark. Where did you start and what are you doing now?
Yeah, so when I first started at Kimberly-Clark 7 years ago, it was on the Sam's Club account. As a brand manager at the time. And I was responsible for all three of our categories, baby and child care, adult and fib care, and family care.
Oh, wow.
Sam's Club's a little bit smaller than Walmart from a total business perspective. So one person to do it all.
Fantastic.
It was great.
Many hats.
Exactly. But it did help me really get to know all of the brands that we support and sell to the customer. And it really helped me meet all the teams, like the brand teams, to understand like who the GMs were, who were the brand managers, right, that were supporting my business for my specific customer. So I think that really gave me an opportunity to really immerse myself in the business and really network with a lot of the people at headquarters and really just understand the overall state of Kimberly-Clark. And again, it was interesting to come back in a Sam's Club role because I had worked with all of those merchants when I was at Sam's Club. So shout out to Pam Thompson, my toilet paper merchant. Still my toilet paper merchant today, but I remember calling on her when I was the consumables and health and wellness marketing manager at Sam's Club.
So y'all's relationship hasn't gone to pot?
No, it's still pretty good. I think so, Pam.
Sorry, I had to do the dad joke there. This podcast deserves at least one dad joke.
Yeah, come on, Matt. It wouldn't be you. I think so. That was interesting. I did that for a little over a year, I think, before I was asked to take on the Walmart family care desk. We had some people just obviously changing businesses, and so that desk had been vacated. And it's one of our largest businesses. Paper, obviously, is the big financial driver, even pre-COVID. It may not be the sexiest business, but it is definitely where the rubber meets the road when it drives revenue for Kimberly-Clark. Just thinking about consumables and the number of households who purchase toilet paper, right? That is the bread and butter, right, of driving Kimberly-Clark to help, again, drive the revenue to support all of the innovation for like our baby and child care and our adult and fem care spaces. And so that, to me, again, was a great opportunity because you're working on a different customer. Again, a lot of my experience had been with Sam's Club. And again, Sam's Club and Walmart do not operate in the exact same manner. And so there was a little bit of nuance that had to be learned and really just understanding what the internal team was looking for from a success criteria and really trying to carve a new path, right? Like what were we doing in that role for family care? This was really when we started to see the initial takeoff of digital. And so traditional shopper marketing was really transitioning into the world of more digital nature. So this is when we started really investing heavier in our search marketing, our paid search strategies. And we were still doing the traditional shopper marketing, the third party like influencer, consumer generated creative. But we were also really trying to find or be discoverable on Walmart.com. And budgets were relatively small. This was a new territory. I remember working with my team and saying, like, there's a real opportunity here. If we want to accelerate our business, it's going to cost us to do it. But, like, it's the right thing to do to really accelerate our business. Yeah. And I asked for $5 million. Incremental, and I basically got laughed out of the room. I remember working with my e-commerce channel managers asking, like, is this even possible? Will the brands do that? I felt like, what is it, Rumpelstiltskin or whatever, when you're trying to, like, sell your unborn children, or, you know, I was like, I'll give you anything. I swear it's the right thing to do for the business. And this is before Illuminate and before all of the data sources. So it was like, trust me, give me $5 million.
Please. You just give you money, okay?
Exactly. Trust me. And I'm known today by that family care team as the 10-cupper. Bridget will always ask for money. Bridget's the one who asks for money every day. So
that's awesome.
I'm known as the one who will ask
but obviously, I would only assume that you've been proven right in your assumptions.
I was. I mean, again, this is one of those things where you cannot take no for an answer. That was the most painful experience of my life. Like, being asked why, like, what's it going to do? How can we improve? What's the ROI on it? I mean, we have definitely accelerated the ability to be able to measure and generate an ROI on these things. But back then, it was a little grayer, right? It really was. And so trying to speak brand language and find that ROI and justify that spend would return something positive and it wouldn't be negative, we weren't really sure, right? Yeah. And so it was like really just that selling story. Why do we think it's going to work? What do we think is going to happen? How are we going to measure it on the journey? And then after about a year, right, it got approved. And then since that pivotal point, you know, I'd obviously moved on to different roles, but like we have seen the fruits of that labor, right, come to fruition. So the budget's continuously increased because it's the right thing to do for the business. That's and awesome. We've accelerated our sales and share position significantly just because of the way we've really invested and focused on driving those digital channels. That's without alienating in store, but it's just different. Yeah, it has worked hand in hand. Yeah,
that's awesome. So now we've given everybody a taste of the history of Bridget Sigler, and we have 24 minutes left to do this.
Give me the hard stuff.
There's no hard stuff here. You know, what to the young professional? What's the best advice you can offer to the young professional?
I would say network. I mean, honestly, that has afforded me all of the experiences I've been fortunate enough to have. My boss from Chicago comes down here sometimes and she's like, do you literally know every single person in this area? And I would say yes to that. I may not know everybody, but I do really make it a point to drive connection with people, to get to know people outside of my industry, right? Which allows me to see things beyond my scope, right? We sometimes get so siloed in the things that we do every day. By actively working to network with people outside of like the supplier community or even, you know, with my previous agency cronies and stuff, you really get an understanding of like, is everybody kind of going through the same experiences? Is this just special to Kimberly-Clark? You're really able to kind of just get your finger on the pulse of what's happening at the business today. And it either makes you feel bad or it makes you feel good because you're in the same boat as everybody else. But I would say networking is probably key. Just making sure you're getting your face out there, introducing yourself to new people, because you never know when those connections are going to turn into an opportunity for you.
Absolutely.
So for case in point, like I said, you don't have to be the subject matter expert all the time. I think it's also just, you know, your ability to make those connections, but then your ability to also be curious and continue to try to strive for greatness and figure out how to do that. Like I joke with my team all the time that shopper marketing sometimes doesn't have a lot of clear direction. And I love that you can get black and white parameters, but work in the gray in the middle because we work in a lot of gray sometimes to kind of figure out what it is we need to go do. So, yeah, I would just say continue to do that.
Awesome. Okay, so we live in a stressful industry. How does Bridget cope with the stresses of retail? Are you numb to it at this point?
Yes. That's a really good description. No, it's hard sometimes. Like, honestly, it's hard to wake up some days. Like, I was just joking this morning that I don't even know why I bother to make a to-do list, because it often gets imploded at 8:05 when I sit at my desk. So, again, you just have to be flexible. I mean, knowing that things ebb and flow, some days are better than others. It's just the reality of the situation. I'd like to think the grass isn't greener anywhere else, and this is the same situation that everybody else works on. But working on Sam's Club and Walmart is just a fast-paced environment, and so there is a lot of change, and there is a lot of heartache and stress that come along with trying to work for one of the world's largest retailers. And so I think you just have to, maybe I'll say this, I am what I deem the eternal optimist. So even when I'm in the trenches, I think tomorrow will be better. And so
awesome.
It can't get any worse. And so I think that's the motivator that kind of pulls me along the journey, even when things get rough and extended roughness happens over a period of time. So just knowing that it can't last forever, and that you'll learn something coming out of the journey. And I know that's super cliche, but I do feel like I can look back at all of those times that were super trying. And I am so thankful that I got to experience it, because now what I know on the other side of it sets me up for success for the future things.
That's that's a wonderful perspective to have. I can't really add much to that. No, really.
That's what keeps me going.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, there's times where, I'm the same way. I had one of these situations this morning where I came in and, today is going to be a great day and everything is on fire and there's not enough water hoses to put it all out. I struggle with being the optimist. I'm always the guy that's in preparation for how is this going to, how do we keep this from burning the house down?
Yeah, doomsday, what?
Right. So, not everybody is optimistic as you are. Well, I can only assume Kimberly-Clark. I know Kimberly-Clark has a lot of great people, but I can only assume that not everybody is optimistic. How do you continue to motivate people with your optimism? How do you continue to, your team, you lead a team, and I know that everything's not ideal.
True.
So, I mean, how do you get your team in that space? Can you?
Yes, I would say just being honest. I mean, we all know that not everybody is the optimist. There are the doomsdayers. There are the ones that are like, oh my gosh, could this get any worse? Like the meme that everything's fine and there's a fire around you. I mean, we feel that probably on a daily. But again, I think optimism and reassurance that things are going to improve goes a long way, right? It's like rallying your troops, right? Bringing them along for the journey and just reassuring them that things will improve. And so just remaining focused on the goal that you've set for yourself. I oftentimes have to take them back to the goal that they set for their task at hand and say, what are you trying to achieve? Because oftentimes there's a lot of scope creep in the work that we do. And going back to the original goal to help us eliminate some of that scope creep, to say okay, are we really on task to do that? Who do we say no to? Who do we say that's going to have to wait? And that's an uncomfortable place to be sometimes, to go talk to your superior to say, this isn't happening, or I can't do this to the degree you want me to. And so you will not net the results that you want. And so I think just being intentional about what it is you're trying to accomplish, also reminding people that we're all in it together. I'm willing to be that boss that rolls up my sleeves and works alongside with somebody. I'm not sitting in my ivory tower telling people what to do. I will help as needed. And I think just knowing that you've got a partner to help you get through the difficult times goes a long way in helping your team kind of weather the storm, which is the chaos that happens. But then again, also just giving them the ability to come to you with problems. I think a lot of times I let them kind of work in their own space until they raise their hand and say, I can't do it anymore. It's getting way too complicated. But knowing enough about the things that they're working on to be able to slip in and say, well, here are a few pieces of my perspective. Have you considered? And again, I think just knowing that you've got someone on your side can really help you, again, weather that storm, because we all experience it. It's joyous most days.
So... you run on positivity and transparency. Gotcha.
Transparency is key. I mean, even when you're hey, I admit this is in the crapper today. It's not going to be great. We have a meeting coming up and I need that from you in the next 15 minutes. And, it's not looking good for us, but I think, but there's that power in being together or togetherness to say you're not going to like leave me sole man on an island, that you're here, you have my back, you're going to support me when push comes to shove. And I know that you'll look out for me. And I think that at the end of the day, I've had managers who've done that for me. And so that's what I try to replicate in my managerial skills.
That's awesome. Well, let's switch to a personal level. So you are a person with a lot of acquaintances, and I can only assume a lot of friends. What's your advice on friends and friendship? What comes to mind when I say those things?
Oh, as I'm getting to my later stages in life. No, it gets harder to maintain your friendships, right? I think friendships change and evolve over time as, you know, you get busy with kids and their schedules and their friends. Making time for yourself and making time to do the things that are fulfilling to you, almost like we talk a lot about self-care these days, coming out of COVID, is finding the time. And it may be few and far between, and like really defining what your friendships are, because your friendships that you had in high school and college change and they are different. And so like I would say, you know, a lot of the people that I've met along this career journey have also become my friends. While they were just business acquaintances, over the course of working together year over year, we found a lot of commonalities. And so those people have become my friends, not in the like, we went to school together, or hey, we partied all night together, or our kids are at the same ball team together. I never did that. No, I was always studying. But again, it's just like the people who have your back. And again, I think it's all about just getting out and meeting people and finding commonality with people. And I know that I can call someone at a moment's notice, and that is great. I sometimes find myself being like, man, I really haven't done anything social in a long time. Maybe I need to get out and do that. But usually it takes you taking that first step to get out there and say, all right, I need somebody who wants to do this, and not being afraid to ask.
Has your circle gotten smaller over the years?
Definitely gotten smaller over the years, and it's changed. I mean, I still have my core besties from back in the day that have my back, but the reality of seeing them is few and far between. I think we get together twice a year. Kids and their schedules definitely get in the way. We are in that season of our lives. But again, like there are people that I go out in the community with here that are great for a good lunch or have coffee with and catch up on all the things. And, you know, just, again, making the time for it, because that is critical. If you don't make the time for it, no one else will. It's an old adage that, like, the phone works both ways. So you're like, well, no one's calling me. Maybe you just need to pick up the phone to call someone.
One of the best, a mentor, which we'll transition that in just a second, but a mentor, you know, gave me some advice years ago. It's funny, over the years, you know, I'm sure you've had some too, where there's some people that were mentors, you just were too young to realize it. But he told me, Matt, you know, the best advice I can give you is to alleviate as much stress as you can. And unfortunately, there are times when we find ourselves with people that create a lot of unnecessary stresses. And, you know, he was alluding to, you know, closing that circle up a little bit. And the quicker I found, and this is in business too, I will say this, both with friendships and really every area. If there's somebody that's just constantly causing you heartache and pain, or always bringing the drama, as they say.
Yes, cut them off.
And in business too, you know, I tell some of these younger guys that ask me advice, you know, younger entrepreneurs that I talk to, and, you know, when you're young and hungry and you're looking to pay the bills, and I'm talking, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm still hungry. I'm just a little older and hopefully a little wiser. But, you know, you don't want to turn anybody down because you want to get that money in the door. But, you know, I tell him, I was like, take it from a guy that, you know, one too many times bent like a twig for the sake of that money. What it costs you is far greater when dealing with somebody that doesn't value you, somebody's looking to use you, and somebody that's just dangling money in front of you. It's going to bite you one way or the other.
Absolutely.
Same thing with friendships too. You know, I'm all about, you know, we don't do things online for the sake of just, you know, wanting something in return. But reciprocation is a good thing.
I mean, if it's all one-sided, would it really be fulfilling?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about mentors.
Yeah.
So Tell me about some of your mentors.
No, I mean, like, I don't think I've ever really asked somebody specifically to be my
Just
mentor.
happened
It's just,
organically.
organic connections. And I would say there were people that probably were my mentors who didn't even know they were my mentors, but I really admired them in the roles that they were in. And so I would like model myself to behave like them because that was like my next career aspiration. And so I would just say like, a lot of things that they would say were very inspirational and motivational for me to continue to pursue that. I would say as a woman in business, looking to other women who were successful in business were like kind of the true north of where I wanted to be. Again, to your point, though, you have to watch, like, what are the things that are important to you and where do you want your career? I've made some choices where I knew immediately it wasn't the right place to be, but how do you gracefully back out of that? And having those mentors really guide the journey to say, like, is it fulfilling to you? Like, yes, this job might be where I want you to be, but like, is that where you want to be, right? Is that fulfilling to you? Is it helping you get out of bed every morning? And so asking those questions of where you want to go and what does your future look like are things that I'm so thankful that my mentors say, like, that's what you need to think of first. It's not the paycheck that comes in every day, but it's what's motivating and fulfilling to you. And when it stops being fulfilling, it might be your sign to look elsewhere. And even having people saying, like, as much as you love this company, don't take it personally. Like, you may think this organization thinks you hung the moon, and maybe they do. But at the end of the day, if you were to leave, your seat would be replaced the next day. And not to take that personally, but to like use that as a motivator to make sure you were finding things that drove fulfillment to you. I also had a gentleman that I worked with at Kimberly-Clark who's just recently retired that I really appreciate when we were talking about development plans and thinking about the future. And he was like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm like, well, aren't I growing up now? And he's like, no, like, what do you want to be? And I was like, joking around, and I said, I want to be Jimmy Buffett on the beach, retired. Like, who does that? And he said, then put that in your development plan. Figure out a way to retire early. Think about those things. And I said, oh my gosh, out of a joke, this person's like, no, this is how you can build your career.
Isn't that wonderful?
And
Those lights that just shine out of nowhere, and you're like, wait a minute.
You're right. So I can retire with Jack Buffett on the beach. Cool. So I'm still working towards that goal.
Okay, last question for today, Miss Sigler. Sure. What brings Bridget Sigler joy?
That's a good question, Matt. I am a social butterfly. If you haven't noticed, I find fulfillment in just being around people. I am just a lover of people and the differences that people bring, and they're like puzzles to me. And I think that's in this role, it's super exciting, but that's what I love about my friendships, and that's what I love about meeting new people and networking. It's just the experience to get another person's perspective that maybe I haven't noticed, or maybe it's something new or different, or maybe it's the same as mine, right? But I think it is motivating to me. I only have a brother, but I'm from a very large extended family, and I think you just naturally are an extrovert when you come from that type of family background. And so, like, I joke about that. That is so fulfilling when other people want to shut the door and run away from the millions of people you hang out with. I mean, that's where I get my excitement, and that's like my zest for like continuing to go. It is like the bucket filler, if you will, is to be around people and just re-energize myself through the viewpoints that other people bring to me, right? So it's a way to explore the world without even leaving my bubble, right? Because everybody's got their own POVs on stuff.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for your time today.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure having you.
You bet. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate you.
Will you come on again?
I sure will.
Sweet.
No hard questions.
Thanks, Bridget.
Yeah, no problem.